User and group management. Today we will see user and group management in our RHEL 7. So first, by default we have one user, that is root, and this is the main administrator we have, and it has all the permissions to on all the files and directories and everything of our system. So we have an administrator account and the account called root. The name of the account is root, and this user is have a whole permission, the every permission, all the permission to do anything in the system. Now it is recommended to have a normal user for normal tasks. That means it is recommended for us to log in as a normal user. Don't log in as a root user, because root user has all the permission, so it can do anything. That means if the user root runs a command to delete something, it will delete, because most of the files it has a permission. So if mistakenly it runs the command, it will delete everything. So we should have a normal user account, and we should log in as a normal user account, and for doing the administrative task we should log in as a we can switch the user to do the task. Now before going into user group management, first we have to know that what is a user. Now user is a person who is going to use our system. Now that user, if you say the user is a person and he is going to use the system, now when the user wants to use the system, it has to authenticate itself to the system that I am this user and I want to use your machine. I want to use this machine, so I have to provide my credential. I have to authenticate myself to the user. User has to authenticate themselves. The person who wants to use the machine, they have to access the machine, and they have to provide the authentication, and they have to provide the information that who is accessing the system. By default we have the one user account, that is root. So if suppose a person wants to access the system and it is providing the root credential for the root account, then it is accessing the system by the administrator account, and it can do anything. So this account is very important, and the account credential, the information will be remain on the person who is the responsible person, that means the administrator of the system. Then we cannot use the same account for everyone. Like for example, we have an administrator who is working on the system, but we may have the other users also, other persons also working on the system on the server, but they are not having a full permission. They are not an administrator. Maybe they are user, they are second administrator, third administrator, so they need a least privilege. Now for managing that, we need a different user account. We can't give everyone a root user account, because root is an administrator account. So for managing the permissions and restrictions, we use a normal user accounts. So normal user account, that means a person who wants to use a system but it does not have a permission or the rights to access everything. So what we can do, we can create a normal user account. The information about that user, that means including the name of that user, the password for the authentication, and other informations. So we create a physical, like the real person's virtual information, and that is called the user account in our system. So user accounts is an information about the person who is going to use the system, and we create virtually an account, a user name and password and all that. So those information will remain with that user, and whenever the user wants to use the system, it will provide that information to access the system. By this way, administrator of the system can also monitor that who is accessing the system and what they are doing. Now in our Linux system we have two type of user accounts: system user accounts and normal user accounts. Now system user account, just like the root user itself is a system user account. We don't create it, it comes automatically. So the system user accounts are the accounts which is used to manage the services of the system. That means whenever we install any services and any application, any row, any services or application in the system, so for running those application or services, they come up with the user account. For example, if suppose we have only root administrator account, and if we are running all the services with that user account, That means those services will get the whole privilege of the system. For example, suppose we are running the web server, we are configuring the web services on our RHEL Linux, and what happened if suppose there is no other account, we use the root account for configuring the service. Now that means the user account will get the root account, the service will have all the permission of that root account. Now if suppose some hacker hacks into that service and it take the control of that service, then what happened, the user, that hacker will get the privilege of root user. So it will get the privilege of root user, and then it can do anything in your system. Now for doing that, for securing it, what we have in the system, we have the system user account. We have separate system user account for separate services. For example, we want to run the web services, so for that we have a user account named Apache. For FTP services, we have a user account FTP. For DNS, we have named user account, and so on. We have for different services, we have different user account, and those user accounts runs those services. Those services runs on the privilege of that user account, and they can get only the resources which they need. So those user accounts provide the information, the resources access only which is needed to run the services, not anything else. It is a least privilege account. It will have the access only those resources that is required to run the services. So if suppose someone hacks into the service, it take the control of that service. If some hacker hacks and take the control of that service, still it will not get the whole privilege. It will get only the privilege what that user account has. For example, if the web service is hacked, so the hacker will get only the account privilege, like the Apache account privilege, whatever the Apache user has. So our whole system will not get compromised. We will get compromised for some part, and then we can recover it. So that is why we have the system users. That system users are the users for the services. So suppose when you install or configure some services, so for running those services and application, we have some user account. Those user account comes automatically. They come automatically, and then we don't have to create them. For example, this root user account. The next type is normal users. Normal users that we create. We create those user account to use the system, to give these normal person an access of our system by using the normal user accounts. These normal user accounts does not have the privilege like the root user account. They get the very least privilege, and if we want, then we can give them the privilege whatever we want. Unless they will remain a normal account, they will not have the permission of any other thing, or mostly the system things. So system files, system configuration, mostly they don't have access. They will have an access of their own files and folders. Now this is what the system user account, that is what these users created by default when we install the system, for example root, and this system user's job is to provide the resources to services, and the normal user means these users are the ones we create. Now when we create the users in Linux, it will create per user per group basis. That means when we create user the key, then system will create one group also with the same name, and that group is called primary group of that user, or user is the primary member of that group. So it is what every user comes with their group. That means when we create any user in a Linux system, it will come with the group, and that group will be the same name as that user, and that group called the primary group of that user, or even we can say the user is a primary member of that group. Now important points to be noted, like no user can resides in a system without a primary group. That means if suppose we are having a user account, we are creating a user account, so that user account will always comes with the group account, our group which is a primary group, and no user, we cannot have any user in the system without a primary group. Now one user can be member of multiple groups. Now these groups are normal groups. What is a group? Group is actually a name, or we can say a object, collection of different objects. So we can have multiple groups, in this case multiple objects. So collection of multiple objects, and objects can be different. This we are talking about the user account. In our case the object is user account. So groups are the collection of user account here. Now collection of user account, that means in one group we can have multiple users as a member. So one user can be member of multiple groups, but only one group will be primary group and rest of the group will be created called as a secondary group. So user can be member of multiple group, and one group can have a multiple user as a member. Now one user can be member of multiple groups, but only one group will be primary. If suppose one user is member of 10 groups, so all those 10 groups, among all those 10 groups, only one group will be called as a primary group. One group will be the primary group, and rest of the 9 groups will be called as a secondary group. So secondary group membership can be removed, but primary group membership cannot be removed. So primary group always required for every user, and only one group can be a primary group for any user. But one group can have multiple users, and that users can be a primary members or members both. Now for example, the group can have multiple users as a members, so those users can be a primary member or can be a secondary member. It does not it can be also. That means it is not necessary that every group has one primary member. It can have multiple primary members. That means we have 10 user accounts, and all those 10 user accounts, primary group is only one group. Then also the same group can be a secondary group of other 10 accounts, because it's a normal group. Now primary groups which is created with the user account, it is not just it is not a special kind of group. It is a normal group where we can make multiple users as a member. But that group is important for that particular user, because that group is a primary group for that user. So as you see, when we create a user account, so by default we get the group also, and the user account will be like, you will name it like this user, this the key. So primary group name will be same, and every user gets the primary group, and without primary group no user can reside in our system, and one user can have only one primary group. No matter this user is member of 100 groups, but that one group will be the primary group. And the group is a normal group. It can have a member of hundreds of different user as a member, but and also it can have a primary members, all of the primary members, or it can have a secondary members also, both. So group can have primary members also, secondary members also. It can have multiple users as a primary member, but user will have only one group as a primary group. Now one more thing, every user that we create, they will get one unique ID, that is called UID, unique ID, user ID. So it's unique user ID. So every user gets a unique user ID. Now every group we create, it will also get a unique ID, and it is called GID. So every user will get the UID, and every group will get the GID. Now that UID and GID, that means when we create a user, so primary group will also be created. So user will get the UID and the group will get the GID. For example, so what we know till now, what we know that we have user accounts and group accounts. First, user account is the representation of the real person who's wanted to use a machine. So it is that person's information is this, like name of the user and password and all that. Now group is what? Group is very simple. It is a collection of different objects. Now in this case we are talking about users. So group is a collection of user object here. In this case, it can be any group. We can say group for anything, like group of chairs, group of tables. group of PCs. Now this is what we are talking about is the user accounts. So group is what a collection of user accounts. Now why we use groups? We use groups to give a collection of permissions. Like suppose we want to give a permission to access some file on 100 users. So instead of giving them a separate permission for each user, 100 user, I will create one group and make that all these 100 user member of that group, and I will assign the permission to that file. Now when we assign the permission to that group, so all that 100 user will get the permission. So we use a group to do what? To give multiple users a single permission or single. We distribute the permission restriction. Basically it is to distribute these security restrictions or permissions. Now what happens in Linux when we create any user account? So with that user account we will get a group also. Now that means when I create an account here, for example U1, so the same name group will also be created. Now this group which is created by default, it is what? It is called primary group of this user. Remember, primary group. Now why primary? Because it is created with the user account. So this is what the default. This is the default behavior. Now this is, we say like this is the group. I round it. Now this is what the group. Now if we have already a group here, if suppose I created a group here also, I created one group. Now I am creating this group separately. It is not created with any user account. This is a separate group. Now if I make this user a member of this group, remember any user can be a member of hundreds of different groups. Like for example this, I will make one more group, G1, G2, now this user can be member of all these groups, but only one group, that is what this group is a primary group for this user. So when we talk about this user, so this is the primary group of this user. All these other groups will called as a secondary group. These all groups will be called secondary group for this user. So user can be member of hundreds of groups, but only one group will be primary group, and rest of the other groups will be called as a secondary group. Now when you talk about the groups perspective, these groups are the normal groups. These are not a different kind of group. They don't have any speciality. They are the group. They are just a group. And groups can have a multiple members. Groups can have hundreds of different members. Like for example, we have user 2 here. We have user 3 here. We have user 4 here. We have user 5 here. Now all these users can be a member of same group. These all members of the same group. Now these users can have their own primary groups. So all these members are also the member of the same group, but only one, this user is a primary group here right now. But we can make all these user a primary member for this group, because it is just a group, so it can be a primary group for all the other users also, just like it is a primary group of this user. So all the users in a single group, we can have multiple primary users or primary members. But for the user, one group will be the primary group. because this user is member of all these group, but only one group will always remain primary group. And for the group, it can have multiple users as a member, and they can all be a primary, and also they can all be a secondary also. It can be a scenario where we have only one primary member for the user, for the group, and rest of the users will be secondary member. But we can have a scenario where all the users of the group can have a single primary group. But this is not default. We have to make this. This is not the default. By default, every user comes with the group. So if suppose I create user 2, so the user 2 will get the user 2 group also. That is the primary group. User 3 will get the primary group of its own. User 4 will get the primary group of its own. User 5 will also get the primary group of its own. Now in case we don't want to create a separate primary group for everyone, and we want a single primary group for all our users, then we can do what? We can do it by doing it manually. It is not default. So what we have to do? We have to change a configuration to make this all user member of a same group as a primary member. But by default, what we get? Every user gets its own primary group. Now what I want to say here, and what you have to remember, that this user or any user cannot reside without a primary group. No matter he has how many secondary groups, but it needs a one primary group. Without a primary group, it will not, it cannot reside in our system. But group does not require any primary member. If there is a simple group, we can also have a single group without any primary member. Like we have created this group, it does not create any primary member. Group will create itself. But user needs a primary group, only one, not all. Every group will be the secondary group, only one group will be the primary group. Then one more thing. Now one more thing is, like when we create any user account, they will get a unique ID, that is called UID, user ID. And when we create a group, whether it is creating with the user or we are creating separately, they will get a unique ID, and it is called GID. It is a unique number. Now why this number is there? This number is there for our system. Now we remember the machine, we remember the names, we remember the users by the name, and we remember the groups by the name, but for the system they are unique number. So for the system, every user is a unique number, that is called UID, and for the system every group is a unique number, that is GID. So system do differentiate between the users and groups by using this UID and GID. So user 1 has a unique ID, user ID, user 2 will get another ID, group 1 will get another GID, and group 2 will get another GID. So the system will understand by this UID and GID that this is this group or this is this user. So every user and group gets the unique UID and GID. Now for example, if suppose this user I create here, if it gets the UID 1000, so the same ID, the same GID it will get, group will get the same GID. Now how many UIDs and GID we have? So UID also we have 0 from 60,000. UIDs we have by default. It is a by default number, but it can be more than 60,000. Practically it can go more than 60,000. Same as for the GID also, we have number from 0 to 60,000. So when we create any user or group, they will get the unique ID from this number. From 0 to 60,000, it will get a unique ID for user and the unique ID for group. Now they will get the same if they are created at the same time. So when we create user 1, U1, so group will create it as a U1 and they will get the same UID and GID. So if the user get the UID 1000, so group will also get the GID 1000. Now this happens only when the GID is available. This is the default behavior. If suppose the 1000 GID is not available, then the group will get another GID like 1001. For example, we have already a group there which is having the 1000 GID. Now user is not there with this GID. So when we create the user, so it will get the UID 1000, but the 1000 GID is not available because the group is already there with that GID. So the group which is created with this user account, the primary group, it will get the another GID, for example 1001. It will go sequentially. But by default they both get the same GID, UID and the GID. Now from this 0 to 60,000 UID and 0 to 60,000 GID, we have 0 to 999 reserved UID and GID also from 0 to 999 reserved GID. Now what these reserved GID? These reserved GID for the system users. So this is reserved 0 to 999 UIDs are reserved for the system users. System users, as I said, the users which comes with the services. So if we have one services installed, so the users will be created and that user will get the UID from this 0 to 999. Now with that user, with that system user, the group will also be created, the primary group for that user, and that group will get the GID from 0 to 999. Now both will get the same UID and GID. For example, this 0 is the UID for the root user account, the administrator, and the primary group of the root user account is also root, and that group will get the GID of 0. So this 0 and 0, the 0 UID and 0 GID is reserved for the root user. Same as the other system users, when we create, they will get these UIDs and GIDs. So UIDs for the system user and the primary group of that system user will get the GID. Now by default, we will not have all these 999 accounts right now, but they will come as we install the services, as we install the applications. Right now by default they are not available, all these accounts, but they will come as they come. They are reserved, these numbers are reserved for those services. Now after that, when we create the normal accounts, that number will start from 1000. So when we create any user account, any normal user account, that will get the number from 1000 as a GID, UID, and for the primary group of that user, it will get the GID as a 1000. So this is for the normal users when we create. So when we start creating the normal users, they will get the user UID of 1000 and GID will get the 1000 GID. This is what it is saying here, that when you create a user account, they will get the UID and group will get the GID, and the 0 UID and the 0 GID is for the root user. So these UIDs and GIDs are reserved for system user and normal users. So for system users, it is reserved 0 to 999. This is reserved for the system user, and when we create a user, normal user, so it will get the UID from 1000 and the primary group will get the GID from 1000, and they can go up to 60,000. Now the 60,000 is the limit for our Linux RHEL system, but practically it can go more than 60,000. Now what users will get after we create the users? Now when we create a user, so what the users will get? So when we create any user, user gets the primary group. So as we know, when we create the user, it will get one primary group also. Now what after that primary group, what it will get also? It will get their home directory under /home. So whenever we create any user, all the users home directory, normal users home directory will go to /home. So it will get the home directory under this /home directory. For example, if we create username Taki. So home directory for the user will be under home, the name of this directory, the name of the user. This is not this is a directory name, and the name of the directory will be same as the username. This is what the default thing. Then the next, user will get the mailbox file with their name, and which is under slash var slash pool slash ash pool slash mail. So under this location it will get the mailbox file. Now if we create, for example, this Saki user, so mailbox file for the user will be var slash spool slash mail. Under that it will be the name of that user. Now remember, this mailbox is not a directory, it is a file, and home directory is a directory. So this is the name of the directory and this is the name of the file. So what the user get, when we create the user, it will get the primary group, it will get the home directory, and it will get also the mailbox where all the mails of that user will reside. Then what are the system files for user configuration? Now these are the system files we have for the user configurations. Now first, this is under etc, we have passwd file. Now in this file it contains the user's information, all the information related to the users. For example, first you will see the login name, then you will see the password mask like this cross, then you will see the UID of that user, the UID which the user gets, and then you will see the GID of the primary group of this user. So with this user the group is also created, and that group GID will show here. And then you will see the additional information of the user, and then you will see the home directory name, and then you will see the bash file, the shell file. By default, every user in Linux, they will get the shell as a bash. This is a born again shell, it is a stable shell. So for every Linux, whenever you create any user account, they will get by default this bash shell. So this will be the information in this passwd file. So under the passwd file you will see this information about the user. As you can see, the login name for the user, like for example I created the name username Taki, so this will be the login name. Then it will show the password mask, this X, you will see the X. Now it is called password mask. Now it will say that the password is there. Then the UID for the user and the primary group's GID, then additional information. Additional information can be any like description for the user, what is that user do, and anything else. And then we can have the additional information like the name, address, phone number, whatever we can add here. Then it will show the home directory name, that what is the home directory for this user, and the shell. Now the next configuration file is called etc shadow file. Under this file it contains the user's password information. That means when we create the user, so we create the password for that user also. Now when we create the password, the information for the password will store in this file. So first you will see the login name in the file. Like when you open the file, you will see the login name of that user. Then you will see the password hash. Then you will see the last password change after 1969. Then you will see the minimum password age, maximum password age, expiration warning period, password inactive, and account expiration date. Then the next configuration file is the group file. etc, under etc it is called group. Now this file contains the group's information, like whatever the group we create, either it is a primary group created with the user account, or we create a group separately. So what we will see, the information of that group will remain in this group file. When you open the file, you will see the group name first, then you will see again the mask for the password, you will see the mask, and then you will see the GID of that user, that group. Then you will see the secondary members. After that you will see all the secondary members' name. Now I will show you the file. First we will create a user account. So how you will create the user account, let's see in our system. Now this is our system. I will open the terminal here. I will zoom in to see. Now I want to create an account here. So for creating the user account, it is very simple. we will give the command user add. User add is a command, and then you will mention the user, whatever the user you want to create, you will mention the login name for the user. So for example, I want to create this user account. Now when I press enter, that user account is now created. Now I want to log in with this user account, so I will go to the other terminal and I will try to log in there. So I will go to other terminal here and I will try to log in with that account. This is the name of the account, login name, and when I press enter, it is asking the password for it. Now when I press enter, it says login incorrect because I don't give the password and we don't create the password. In Windows we can use a user account without a password, we can log in with that, but by default in Linux there is no way, there is no option to log in. The by default user account cannot log in without password. So if the user wants to log in, then it has to provide the password. So by default without password no one can log in. So we have to create password for this user also. We created the user but we have not created the password. So I'll go back to my graphical terminal and I will create password for this user account. Now for creating the password, editing the password, modifying the password, we have a command called passwd. Now this command we will use to do what? To add a password if it is not there, to edit the password if it is we want to edit the password. So we can edit, we can create password by using this same command. Now I will mention the username, then I will press enter. Now it is saying that changing the password for user the key. Now the changing the password, but it is actually not changing because there is no password there. So it is asking, say, new password, give me the new password. So I will say ABC. You will not see when you type the password, it says it is bad password, the password is shorter than 8 characters, but because I am root, I am logged in as a root, I can use, it is successfully added, updated. Now who can update the password and who can create the user accounts? Now remember, only root user can create user accounts in a system. Normal users can't do this, but normal users can do this, that they can use to change their own password. If suppose the user is logged into his system and it wants to change the password, then it can change its own password. Because root is creating the password, so root will by default create a same password for every user. Mostly root user do what? Administrators create the password for every user, the same passwords. Then what? They ask the users to change the password when they log in. So whenever the user logs in, they will change the password. So when the user logs in, the user can change its own password, but they cannot change other users' password. Now when the user changes its own password, normal user, so when it used this command, then what happened? First it asks the previous current password. For root user, it is not asking any current password. You see, it is saying new password directly. But for the normal users, when the normal user try to change its own password, first it will ask the current password. When the user provides the current password, then it can change the password. Otherwise, somebody else can run the command to change the password for the user. So it is not secure. So when the normal user try to change the password, it will ask the current password. But for the root user, it will not ask the current password. For example, if the user forgets the password, it is not remember the password and it want to reset the password. So only root user can do that, and root user when try to reset the password, so it will not ask the previous password. It should not ask the previous password because the previous password root user don't know and the users also forgot. So nobody knows the password. So for root user, it will not ask the current password. Now we have updated the password. Now I will try to log in. I will go to the other terminal. I will try to give the username and the password which you will not see when I type. and we are logged in here. And now you can see it shows also one more thing. It says last failed login on this date and time on this terminal. So there was one failed login attempt since the last successful login. This is also useful messaging. When the user logs in, it can say that somebody is tried the password and it was failed. If suppose this is not the user, so user knows that somebody else is trying to log into his account. So this is what we created the user account, and then we created the password for the user account. Now we can see the configuration file for the users. So the first file is what? Under etc passwd. Now this file contains what? Information about the user account. So when you open this file, I am opening the file in Vim so that we can see it in colors. Now what we are seeing here is the information about the user account. For example, the first it is divided, the informations are divided by this colon. Now first part, it says the user name. This is the user's login name. Then it is showing the password mask. It represents that the password is there, it is to be asked. And then it is saying this is the UID of this user, and this is the GID of the primary group of this user. Now this is root user, and we can see this is the primary, this is the UID which is 0, and the primary group's GID is also 0. And this is the additional information. It is stating that this is the root account and this is the home directory. Remember, root user has a separate home directory, that is /root. Normal user's home directory will be under /home, but root user's home directory is under /root. Now this is the shell for the user. Now every user gets this default shell, that is bash. So root user is also getting the same shell. Now these are the system user accounts. You can see these are the all system user account. According to the services, these accounts are there. For example, here we can see Apache user. This user handles the web services. We have the FTP user which handles the FTP services. Then same as we have the other users, and they are having their own, like this is UID for the user, this is the GID for the user, these are reserved, this is the comment and other information. But these system users, they get the shell which is called no login. All these users, these system users get the shell which is no login. Now why they get no login? Because these are system users. They don't have to log into any interactive terminal. They only have to work in background. So they don't have to log in, and they should not have a permission to log in interactively on any terminal, any shell. But root user is a system user which is we use to configure everything, and it has to be login. It needs the login, so it is getting the bash shell. But other system users are not getting any shell. They are getting no login. Now the user account which we created, we can see it is under the in the bottom. Now what we see here is the account which we created here. The name, the login name of the account. This is the mask password mask, and this is the UID, and this is the GID for the primary group. Now as we see here, it is getting 1001 as a UID and 1001 as a GID. Now why they are getting 1001? Because 1000 is already used, and this is the account which we created at the time of installation. So at the time of installation, the account which we create, that is also a normal account, and it gets this 1000 UID, and the primary group of that user is also get the 1000 GID. And the account which we created right now, it is getting the UID of 1001 with the primary group GID as a 1001. Now here in these two columns, there is no comment here, there is no additional information, because when we created the user, we have not given any information here. This user is created at the time of installation, so it has an information about the user. Then the home directory for these users are under home. These are directory name, and then these both users are getting the shell as bash because they are normal users and they get the shell. These users get the bash shell to log in. They need to log in into interactive terminals shells, so they need a shell also, bash. This is the passwd file. This is the information of the user accounts. Now I will quit this file. Now the other file is the shadow file, where you can see the password of the users and all the information about the password information of the user. Now when you open the file, so what you see here is this is the login name of the user and this is the password. Now password is not stored in plain text, it is hashed. So whatever you see here, it is a hashed value of the password. So anyone, if suppose someone get the access of the file, still it will not able to see the password because the password is hashed. Now the password is hashed with the hashing algorithm SHA and 512 bit. So SHA 512. Now remember, hashing algorithms are do what? One time hashing. It is a one time bash and it cannot be reversed. Nobody can reverse it, even the system itself cannot reverse it. Encryption is reversible, but hashing is not reversible, and it uses the latest algorithm for hashing. It uses SHA and also it is SHA 512. That is the hardest one to hash the information. Now it do hash the password and store the hashed value here. So when we create the password for any user, the system do what? It will hash the password with the algorithm SHA 512, and then whatever the value comes, it will store into this shadow file. Now when we try to log into the same user account, when we provide the password at the time of login, so whatever the password value you provide, the system do what? It will hash that value with the same algorithm, and whatever the value comes, it will try to match the value with this hashed value. That is how it will try to see the password is right or no, or wrong. So if you may mistakenly give the wrong password, even if a 1 bit wrong, then the hash will be completely different. So machine itself cannot reverse the password hash. It will match the hash which is stored here. It will compare the hash which is stored in the file and the hash of the password value which we provide at the login time. Okay, so this is the hash. Then what we have here is the last password change information. Now that is not available for the root user because the password for root user should not expire. Then this is the minimum password age, maximum password age, and this is the warning period. Before password expiring, it will give the warning before 7 days. Now it is having an expiration date, but it is not having a starting date. That means when it was start and count this 9999 days, it is not there, and because of that, because this is the root account, so it is not going to expire. Now when we see these system accounts here, they don't contain any password, and as I said that without a password no user can log in by default in our system. So these system users should not log into any interactive shell or terminal. For that they don't have any password here. They have the other values, they don't have a password, they have a star value here. Now the account which we created is at the bottom. So the account which we created at the time of installation is this, and the account which we right now created is this. So what is this? This is the password hash, and this is the password hash for the account which I created right now. The password is only ABC, but you can see the hash is how big the hash is. Then this is a days, it is counting a days of last password change. It is counting a days of last password change, and this is also not available here for this user account because this is also the account which we created at the time of installation. It is created by the system. but this is what we created the normal account, and it is showing here the last password change in days. It is actually days. Now last password change after 1969, that means it is counting the days after 1969. So after 1969, 18,827 days after the password for this user is changed or actually created right now. If we see these other system accounts which was created at the time of installation, they are having 18,816. In the account which I created right now, it is 18,827. It is the time difference after the installation we created this account today. Now this days will be count for the starting point of this expiring days. So the password is going to be expired after this 9999. That means 99,999 days. So after these days the password will expire, and this 99,999 days will be counted after the last password change. So after the last password change, it will count this number of days and then it will expire the password. And after the password expire, before this 7 days, it will give the warning. It will give a warning that your password is going to expire and you should reset the password. And if you don't reset the password, then your password will expire. So if you don't change the password, your password is going to expire after these number of days. But this is the minimum password age. That means for 0 days you have to keep your current password. Now for example, I change the password today, then I want to change the password again, so I have to keep my password for 0 number of days. Now 0 is the default, that means we can change the password anytime. If I change the password now, then I can change the password after 1 minute, I can change the password after 1 minute, I can change the password after 1 minute also. So I can continuously change the password as many times I want in a day. But if I suppose put the days here, if I put 1 day here, then we have to keep the password at least for 1 day, and we can change the password only after 1 day. Suppose I change the password now, today, at this time, then after 24 hours I can change the password again, unless I cannot change the password. So whatever the number here, we have to take we have to keep the password for that number of days. Then what these other values are? These other values are like this: password inactive, which is -1. Password inactive, that means if suppose you have not changed the password after 99,999 days, you forgot to change the password, then your password will become inactive. But before 1 day, you see -1, that means before 1 day your password will become inactive, and you will not able to use your real password also. That means, you know what, when you change the password, when your password is expired, you will give the real password, it will give you the warning. After before 7 days, it will start giving you the warning that your password is going to expire, change the password. But when the password is inactive, then your password, the real password, will also not work, and you have to go for the administrator route to change the password. Then the second thing, the last thing, is about the account expiration date. This is also -1, that means before password expiring, before 1 day, it is going to expire the account itself. That means your password and account both will be expired at the same time before 1 day. Before 1 day, that means -1, that means -1 from this 99,999. We can change this value, this is the default one. Now account expires, that means the account will expire and you are not able to use the account. Then the last configuration file for the users groups is etc, under etc groups. So I will close this. The last file is what? Under etc groups, and it contains the information about groups. Now you see, this is the group account, group name, this is the primary group of root user, this is the mask for the group, and this is the GID. This is the GID of that group. Now after the GID, after this colon, you will see the secondary members. That means if this group has any secondary member, so you will see all the names here after this colon. For example, in this you can see here the name postfix. Here you see the Amanda backup. So these are the secondary member of this primary this group, but you will not see any primary members information here. That means if we have the name group name here, so we can't say that this group is primary group of any user. Because of the name is same, we can say that this is a primary group of root user, but sometimes the names can be different, so we can't say that this group is a primary group of this user. We can only see that by using this GID. We see the GID here, then we go to the passwd file and check that this GID is for which user, and by that we understand that this group is the primary group of any user. So we can see only secondary members name here, but primary members name we can't see here. We can only verify by using this GID. We see the GID of the group, and then we go to the passwd file and check that which user has this number, this GID. That means that user's primary group is this. And same as here, when we go at the bottom, we see that this is what the user which we created, and this is the GID, this is the group name, and this is the GID for this user. There is no secondary member here, but we cannot say that this from here we can't say that this group is a primary group of any user. We have to verify by using this GID. Now we can see the secondary members here. As we saw here, this group is a secondary group of this user. It is actually itself. It is a primary group of the same user and also secondary group of the same user. So this is the information we have this under this configuration files. Now all these three configuration files under etc, but remember, we don't change the configuration directly in the file. We don't change it. We can do that, but we don't change it directly in the file. Because we are logged in as a root, we can do that directly, change into the file, but it is not recommended. We create user, the user information will go to this file. We create password, the password information will go to this file. We create groups, the group information will go to this file. And for checking the user information, that which user is a primary group, what is the primary group, secondary group, then we have a command ID. So when we run the ID command and the username, then you will see that this user is having this UID, and this is the name of the user, and this is the primary group of that user with this GID and the name of that group. And it shows here that this user is member of what other groups, instead of except this primary group. It will show all the group membership here. Like for example, if this user is member of other 10 groups also, that means other secondary groups also, so it will show all the groups name here, primary and secondary, everything. Right now this user is member of only its own primary group, so it is showing here. Now if I check ID for the user which we created at the time of installation, we can see here that this is also the UID is 1000, because this is the first normal user with the GID of 1000, the group ID, and it is also member of its own primary group. It is not member of any other secondary groups. So we can see by this ID command, or we can directly go to the passwd file to check the GID, and then go to the group file to check which GID of this user group, to check the primary group. Other than that, secondary groups will show under the file. So this is how we created the user, and these are the configuration files of the user, and in those configuration files what information we have seen that all informations. And this is the command to see the information about the users. Then for logging with the user account, we can go to other terminal to log in. Other terminals, we have other terminals, command line terminals, and if we want to log in graphically, then we have to log out from here with this user account, and then we can log in with these other user account which we created. Or if you are working on the command terminal and you just want to switch to other user account, and you don't, suppose you're accessing your server through remotely and you want to switch to other user account. Now in that remote terminal you will not get the other terminal like this. Like you press here, when you're logged in directly, you press Alt Control, go to F2, you will get the other terminal where you can log in with the user account and go back to graphical to log in with the other user account. If suppose you are accessing this server through remote terminal, then what? You will get only one terminal. And you want to switch the user from the terminal, directly from the terminal, then you can do that by using the SU command. It is to switch user account, one user to other user. SU, that means switch user. And then you can mention the name of the account which you want to switch. Now remember, if you are logged in as a root user, then it will not ask the password for that user which you are switching. Because you are logged in as a root, you can switch to any user account without a password. As like this, when I press enter, it is not asking me any password and directly switching me to that user account. And here you can see the user account. We are logged in now as this account, and now this is the normal user as we see the dollar symbol. And when I exit, I will go back to my root account. So this is how we can switch directly from the terminal. On the terminal we can directly switch to other user. Now if you are logged in as a root account, it will not ask the password. But if you are logged in as a other account, normal account, then it will ask the password for the account you are switching. One more thing, when you switch directly with this command SU and the name of the user, you will remain in the same directory. The directory will not change. That means right now I'm logged in as a root and I'm under this home directory of the root user. Now when I switch the user with this command, I switch the user, but the home directory will be there. The directory will be the same directory where I was previously working. Now this is the root user's home directory. This is not the home directory for this user. So it is not showing this symbol here. It is showing the name of the directory, and this is the root user home directory, so there is no permission here for this user. Now to user go to his own home directory, it will give the cd command to go back to its own home directory, and now you can see this symbol, and now the user is its own home directory. Now if you want to, I will log out from here. Now if you want to switch the user and you just want to go to his home directory also, then you will give the command like this, su hyphen the username. Now what it will do here, it will switch the user and also switch the account. It will switch the home directory also. You see, it is not just a switching, it is actually logging. So we have this option. Now if you are logged in or if you are logged in as a normal user, you want to switch to other user, if you give this command to switch to other user, then it will ask the password for that user because you are logged in as a normal user. But when the user switches, when the root user switches, it will not ask the password. Exit to this user, exit to root, and if I press exit, then it will exit the terminal. That means log out from root user also. Now we know how to create the user account. We know how to see the information about the user account, how to switch the account, how to log in the account. Now we'll do some advanced configuration for user accounts. I will open the terminal again. Now some advanced configuration. For example, when I created the account, when I created this account, I have not mentioned any comment. These accounts has comments. You can see here special user account to be used by O profile. So it is having a comment description here like what is this account, what is it do. But I created the account, but I have not given any additional information. So if I want to create an account with an information, then I will use an option with user add -c. User add -c, it is for adding the comment, additional information. Then after colon, after quote, you can add whatever you want. Like I say, this is normal user account, and then I will mention the name of the user. I'm saying user 1. Now this account we created, this account is created with the comment, additional information. So when I open this passwd file, now I can see I have created this user, and here is the comment. Now whenever we create the user account, they will go to home directory. This is the home directory created under /home. So every user by default creates the home directory under /home. Now for example, I want to create a user for different purpose, and I want to create the home directory for those users in different directory. For example, I want to create the user for NIS services. We have an NIS services here in Linux. So I want to create the user for NIS services, and I want to create a separate user for that services, and home directory also I want separate. So I have created a separate directory. Like for example, I will create right now mkdir NIS, and I want to create all the NIS users into this directory. But by default, whenever we create any user, the home directory will be created under /home. So I can create a user with the command option D, and then I will mention where I want to create the home directory. So I want to create under this directory. Then I will mention the directory name. Now directory name will be the same as the username. So my username will be user2. Now remember, this is what the directory name I am giving. So I want to create the directory under this directory, and then this will be the directory name for the user. Now this is the same name of the user account. So user account name will be user2. So I'm creating this user account, and this user account's home directory will be user2 also, same name, and this directory will be created under this directory which I have just created right now, because I want to create separate users. And this D option will do change the home directory. Now when I press enter, the user is created. We can verify in the configuration file. We'll go to passwd file, and what we see here, that there is no comment. We have not added the comment. UID is going sequentially, like after 1000, 1001, 1002, 1003, and this home directory, if you see, the home directory is not under home, it is now under NIS, and this is the home directory. And when we see here, when we list the /home directory, we can see there is no user2 here. There is no user2 home directory. So where the home directory for user2 is created, it is created under this directory. We can see the home directory for the user is here. Then every user we create, they get by default this bash shell. But we have the other shells also. We have sh shell, we have csh written in C language, we have kernel sh, ksh. So we have other shells also. Or sometimes, suppose based on our organizations, we created a custom shell for our users, and we want to give those shells to our users. When we create the users, we want to give them a custom shell. What we can do, we can create the user account with the -s option, and then we will mention the shell which we want to give to that user. For example, I will give sh shell to the user. Or suppose I want to create a user which I don't want to log in. I don't want that user should log into a terminal, log in interactively, like on this terminal shell or graphical terminal or command line shell. I don't want that user should log into any terminal. So what I can do, I can give a shell like from sbin I can give no login. Now when I give the no login shell, the user will not be able to log into any interactive shell. That is not even a graphical shell, not even a command line shell. Now why we do this? We do this for the users which we want them to log in remotely. Log in remotely through the web services or FTP services. So if suppose the user wants to, we want to create a user only for the FTP services. Now FTP services users don't log in interactively. They log into the FTP and download and upload. Web services, they don't log into interactive shell. They use web services based on the authentication. So those kind of services which we don't want to create a login account in for the user, for the system, don't want to log in there, don't want to allow them to log in interactively. So we can create the user with this shell. So they will not be able to log in interactively. I want to give the shell sh to the user, and then I will mention the username. So with this shell, user can log in on this command, interactive shells like command line or graphical, but it will get the different shell. It is not getting the bash, it is getting sh shell. We can verify by using this fastwd file, and we can see now this user 3 we created, and it is getting what? Bash shell. Now as we see here, when we are creating the user accounts, they are getting the sequentially, they are getting the UIDs. Now if suppose I created the next user, if I create user 4 now, then it will get the UID of 1005. But if suppose I want to create a user with a unique UID whatever I want, so I can do that by using the command user add -u, and then I will mention any UID I want. For example, I want to create the UID 5000 for my next user, and the user is what? User 4. So this user will not get the UID automatically, it will get the UID which I am giving it to. Now we can check by using the ID command also, and you can see what it is getting the UID of 5000, and the primary group is also created with that user, and that is getting also the GID of 5000 because it is available. So they will both get the same GID, UID and GID number. We can verify it from our configuration file also. So we can see after 1004 we created the user account with this UID 5000, and because the UID is available 5000, the group ID will also be the 5000, not one. It is not 1005, it will get 5000 directly, same as the UID. So we can create a user account with a different UID. Now when we create a user account with a different UID, so after that when we create any account, it will start after this because it goes sequentially. So it will create after 5000, next user UID will get 5001, 5002, 5003. In between 1004 to 5000, these numbers will remain unused. So we can use them manually. We can create the user account with those user IDs. We have lots of numbers, we have 60,000 numbers, and more than that, practically it goes more than that. So we can have a number, it is more than 60,000. 60,000 is very much. So we can use any UID. Now what we did here, we added the comment. Remember I told you that you don't have to edit the file directly, you can use the command to do that. So we added what? We add the comment here, we change the home directory, we change the shell also, and we also change the UID value. Now we can also change the GID. For example, if I want to create a next user, for example user 5, but I want to use a different GID. But remember, this is not a number, this is not just a number, it is actually a group. And this user is a group member. It is a primary group of this user. So when you talk about the GID, you want to change the GID of the next user, new user, that means you are talking about changing the membership of that user account. So if you want to do that, then it is not like I will create a new user with 6000 GID. It will not successfully create. It will give me error, because it will say that there is no 6000 GIDs available, because this GID is actually a membership for the group, for the user. So we can change the GID, but not with the new GID, we can change with the existing GIDs. That means we can create a new user and we can make that user primary member of the existing group. And that means the changing of GID is actually making the new user member of the existing primary group. For example, I told you that one group can have multiple primary members. So how we can do that? We can do that by using this option where we can change the GID. So for example, I want to create a new user. For example, I want to create user 5. So the user 5 will get the UID of 1001. But I don't want to create a primary group for that user. I want to use the existing group for that user as a primary group. And that means I will change the GID option. So for example, I want to create a user 5 now after user 4 with the new GID, not new GID, actually I will use this 1000. So then what happened? The user will be created with the new UID 5001, but the GID will be shown like this 1000, and that means the user 5 will not get the primary group, it will get this group as a primary. So the new group will not be created for user 5. The primary group, the existing group, will be the group for that user also. So changing the GID is not like changing the UID. It is like changing the group membership. So I can do that by using the user add command for the new user with -G option. But I have to mention the existing GID. You cannot mention the new GID. So for example, I will give 1000. And remember one more thing, instead of giving the GID, we can give the name of the group directly, the existing group. Now I am creating new user 5. So the user will be new, but the primary group for this user will not be created, because we are saying that this group GID will be the primary group for this user. So when I press enter, then what happens here, when I use this configuration file, so I can see that the user's 5 is created with the user ID 5001, but the group ID we decided 1000. Now 1000 is this group ID. This is the same group for this user. This is the primary group of this user. Now this group, the primary group of this user is also a primary group of this user now. So the new group is not created now. The new group for this user is not created. We are using the existing group as a primary group for this user. So if we see the file, group file, so there is no user 5 group here. If you see here, there is no user 5 group here, because the user 5 is not there. This group, this tech group, is also a primary group of user 5. Now we see here, this group is primary group of user 5 and also the tech group, but we can't see any name here, user 5 here. So we can't see the primary members here. We can only see the secondary members in the file. If you want to see the detail, then we will use the ID command. Now when I say ID command, ID user 5, now what we see here, this is the UID and this is the username, and the GID you can see 1000, and this is this group's GID tech, and also the same group is a primary group of the other user, which is this user itself. So this is a user which is having this primary group, but now we created this user also with the same primary group. Now this group is a primary group for two users, same as we can have multiple primary members for the particular group. So we can do that by changing the group ID when we are creating the user account. Now this is what we did for the new account. Remember, all these we have done for the new account. We added the comment for the new account which we are creating. We change the home directory for the new account which we are creating. We change the shell for the new account. We change the UID for the new account, and also we added the new user account with the existing group ID by changing the group ID also. But if suppose we want to do the same thing for the existing account, if suppose we are having the account already created and we want to add a comment to that account, or we want to change the comment of that account, then these options will remain same. Only the command will change. Remember, only command will change, but the options will remain same. For example, I want to change the comment of this user. User 1, we have added this comment that this is normal user account. I want to change this comment. Now this user is the existing user. As we see in the passwd file, this is the user 1. It is already there, and this is the comment we created. Now I want to modify it. So what I will do, I will use command user mode. Instead of user add, I will use user mode, that is user modify. And then the rest of the options will be same. -C, then whatever the command you want to add, like I will say this user is for testing. Previously it was saying it is a normal account. I am saying now this is for testing, and then I will mention the existing user account. Then I will mention the existing user account. Now when I press enter, so it do what? It changes the existing user account. Now when you see the passwd file, you see it is changed the comment. Now same as for the home directory shell, we can change all, we can use the same command. Now for the home directory, like we created the home directory under this NIS for this user 2. I want to change it again. I want to change it back to home. So what I will do, I will use user mode -D. Then I want to move to home directory for this user account user 2, and then I will mention the user 2 also, the username, existing username. But when you are changing the home directory, you have to add one more option here, -M. If you don't add this, it will not move the home directory. It will not move the home directory. It will remain the same, only it will change in the configuration file. Only it will change in the configuration file, it will not move the directory itself. I will show you, I will not add this. I will change it right now. Now when you see the configuration file, so here for user 2, now the home directory is under home, it is not under NIS. But in reality, if you check under /home, there is no home directory for user 2, because the home directory is still under /NIS. You can see it is still under /NIS. Now what is the problem? Because in the configuration file it says under home, but the directory is not there. So when the user try to log in, it will try to search the home directory what the configuration file says, and what it says here, cannot change the home directory, and it is not finding the home directory there. No such a file or directory, because It is only updated the configuration, but the home directory is still there. So if you don't want to do that, I will move it again back to NIS. Now when we see this configuration file, it says it is under NIS and the home directory is also under NIS. When you list the NIS, the home directory is there. Now when I switch, it gets the home directory, no error. So if you don't want to see this error, so whenever we move the home directory, we will do what? We will move with -m option also. Then it will do what? It will move the home directory also. So when you check now, under NIS it is not there and it is now under home directory. And now you see the home directory is under /home. And now when you switch the user, it will not see the error also. So whenever we change the home directory with user mode command, we have to do it by using extra option M. So under the configuration file and in the real, it will also move the directory. So now what we have here, under the configuration file also it is changed. Now same as for this, we can change the shell also. Like this is using the bash sh shell. I want to give it the bash shell again to this user3. So what I can do, I can run the command, same command with user mode option, -s, then bin bash for user3. Now when you check the configuration file, you can see it is now bin bash. Now same for the UID. UID can also be changed easily. This is having user4 is having 5000. I want to change it. So what I can do, I can use the user mode command, then -u. I want to give 4000 to user4. And now you can see it is having the UID of 4000. UID we can change easily, there is no problem. But changing the GID means what? Changing the group membership. Now for example, for this user I want to change the GID. That means I will change the group membership from this group to any other group. For example, I want to change this user file's group membership from 1000 to 1001. So I will use the same option but with user mode -g. This is for the primary group, and then I will mention the GID, and then I will mention the username. Now I told you that you can use, instead of GID, you can use the directly user group name also. So I will use group name here instead of using the GID. Then when you check, you can see it is now having 1001, and that is this user's primary group. And we can verify by using the ID command. And we can see this is the primary group of this user now. So these are some advanced configuration we have seen. There are some more advanced configuration we will see in next lecture.